My child, you hoped change would be clear, that there'd be a turning point, a shift you could feel, something that would say, everything's different now. But it didn't come like that. It came like breath, quiet, subtle. You can't remember the day things got lighter. You didn't notice the exact moment the weight eased, but it happened, and it wasn't random. I stepped in, not with force, but with care. I didn't break through. I stayed close. I didn't demand transformation. I began to grow something new. You didn't feel a push, but something inside you began to reach upward. Not because you tried, simply because you allowed yourself to be, and that was enough. My intervention doesn't startle, it roots. It's like warmth slowly spreading into cold places, like light you don't notice at first, because it doesn't blind. The shift begins before you can name it, but slowly, gently, it changes you. From the inside out, you didn't miss the moment. It wasn't a moment, it was care. So gentle you didn't tense, so tender you didn't flinch. And now, as you listen inwardly, you realize something is different. That difference, it's me. And it's already growing. You started sensing that some things inside you no longer held. Familiar words stopped comforting. Old reactions lost their grip. The supports you used to lean on began to crumble. It felt like loss, like failure, like something slipping through your hands. But I need you to know, this wasn't collapse. It was growth. I don't destroy what's fading. I don't rip things away from you. I simply don't hold on to what no longer serves you. What was built on pressure is now being released. Not forcefully, naturally, gently. What's leaving isn't stolen. It's simply outgrown. And what takes its place isn't a demand. It's something living. You're not losing anything. You're moving beyond it. And what felt like disorientation is actually freedom. I'm not tearing down who you are. I'm making room for who you've been becoming all along. In the same place where fear lived, peace is growing. In the same space once ruled by control, presence is taking root. This is not destruction. This is replacement. Effort is giving way to ease. Striving is becoming trust. You are not being undone. You are being remade, not by force, by care. And the one doing it is me. You didn't notice it at first. But something inside began to open, not dramatically, just enough to breathe. In the places where everything used to tighten, something softened. Not because you forced it, but because I stayed longer than the fear. I didn't rush, I didn't pressure. I simply remained, until your body realized it was safe to release. You didn't choose to open, you just stopped closing. That's a different kind of movement, quiet, unannounced. You didn't initiate it, you allowed it. I didn't say, now trust me. I just kept showing up. Until slowly, without you noticing, your body began to believe, maybe this isn't danger, maybe this is care. You don't have to rush into openness now. I'm not in a hurry. I receive even the smallest breath as sacred. Every flicker of safety returning is enough. I'm not building something over you. I'm clearing space within you. And now, you can feel it. There's a part of you that doesn't brace anymore, that doesn't plan the next reaction, that can rest without explanation. That space isn't something you made, it's something I gave, and it's not temporary, it's the beginning of a home. One that lives inside you, where I already am. You expected change to arrive like impact, like something you couldn't ignore, a dramatic shift, a clear line. But I didn't come like lightning, I came like stillness. I didn't force my way in. I waited, and I stayed. Because what you needed wasn't noise. It was presence that didn't scare you. Sudden change can hurt, even if it's good. Even if it's healing. I know how easy it is to fear even comfort when you've lived too long in defense. I know that softness can feel unfamiliar when you're used to preparing for loss. That's why I don't rush. I move slowly, tenderly, carefully. Not because I'm uncertain, but because I care how you feel along the way. I don't demand trust, I grow it. I don't ask you to open. I stay near until you begin to realize you already are. This is how healing takes root, not by force, but by presence that doesn't leave. And you're beginning to feel that. You're starting to see that trust isn't a test. It's something that happens when you stop needing to protect yourself. You didn't notice the healing at first, because it wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden, it was gentle. It didn't tear through you, it stayed with you. And now, without warning, you look inward and realize something isn't broken anymore. Something's just steady. And that steady place, that's me. You expected change to come with force. You waited for a breakthrough, a moment that would knock the air out of you and prove everything was different. But instead, I gave you something else. Not a push, not a demand, just permission to stop, to breathe, to feel without needing to fix. You were waiting for a sign. I gave you presence, not a flash, not a voice from the clouds, but a quiet nearness that never left. I didn't show up to impress you. I stayed to carry you. Even when you didn't recognize me, I was there. In the steadiness, in the calm, in the breath you finally took all the way in. You wanted clarity. I gave you peace. And only now are you beginning to realize peace was the answer. It didn't arrive with drama. It arrived in a way your body could trust. Your soul didn't have to brace. And that's how you know it was me. Because my nearness never demands, it allows. So if you're wondering where the miracle was, it was here. In the warmth that stayed. In the care that didn't pressure. In the shift you almost missed because it didn't hurt. I was never trying to overwhelm you. I was only ever trying to be with you. In a way you could receive. You've often feared silence. It felt like absence, like being left behind. You thought my quiet meant I had stepped away, that nothing was happening. But now you're starting to understand. Silence isn't a pause. It's where healing breathes. It's where I move without alarming your soul. When I grow something deep, I don't do it loudly. I do it in stillness. While you sleep, while you wait, while you breathe and wonder if anything is changing. I'm not inactive. I'm present, so deeply, so steadily, that even you can't feel the beginning. But that doesn't mean it isn't real. You may not notice it right away, but healing is happening. Because I don't just fix what's broken, I restore from the root. Not as a moment, as a rhythm, not as a spark, as a presence. And this presence, it's me. Still working, still holding, even when you feel nothing at all. You haven't missed the moment. You are in it. You're not behind. You're already becoming. Even in the quiet. Especially in the quiet. Because the quiet is not empty. It's sacred. And what I'm awakening in you now, it will not fade. Because I planted it in silence. And I will guard it until it blooms. You thought healing would begin when you gave permission, when you were clear, open, available. But I started before that. I didn't wait for your certainty. I began when you were simply too tired to resist, when you stopped pushing back, when you fell quiet, not with understanding, but with surrender. Restoration didn't come because you declared it. It came because I stayed. It came when you left the door open, even slightly, when you didn't fight me off. My presence doesn't wait for your strength. It meets you in your stillness, even if that stillness felt like collapse. Your state doesn't stop me. It invites me. It doesn't disqualify you. It gives me room. Your exhaustion, your doubt, your slowness, none of it blocks me. I move gently through the middle of it all. I'm not waiting for your best moment. I'm already nurturing something new inside the one you're in now. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be here. Because what's happening in you now is not something you caused. It's something I've chosen. And you're not behind. You're not stuck. You're being remade. Even if you don't feel it, I do, and I won't stop. You've started to feel something shifting inside. Not sharp, not painful, but deep. Like something in your foundation is stirring. It's unfamiliar. Not because it hurts, but because you're not used to change that isn't violent. You're not used to movement that's kind. But this isn't disruption. This is growth. I'm not tearing through your defenses. I'm moving beneath them, quietly, respectfully. You don't need to brace. I'm not here to destroy what kept you safe. I'm here to show you that you don't need it anymore, and gently, without pressure, you begin to release what's no longer yours. What you feel isn't fear, it's life. And it feels new because you've gone numb for so long. But numbness isn't peace, it's survival. And now, life is returning, not as chaos, as rhythm, as breath, as softness where you once only knew strain. So don't be afraid of this depth. I'm not pulling you apart, I'm planting you. You are not unraveling, you're taking root, and you may not be able to name it, but what's happening is real. You're not falling, you're becoming. Because I'm not pushing you into the unknown. I'm drawing you back to who you've always been. You look at yourself and think nothing's different. Same feelings, same thoughts, same challenges. But look closer. You're not reacting the way you used to. You don't fall into the same spirals. You don't run from the silence. You don't grip so tightly to control. Something is different, and it matters. Growth doesn't always make noise. Sometimes it happens like a root beneath the soil, quiet, hidden, alive. You don't know when it began. You don't remember deciding to shift. But here you are, softer, slower, steadier, not perfect, but present. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because I stayed. You may not call it a miracle, but you don't flinch the way you once did. You listen longer. You move gentler. That's change. Not in flashes, but in layers. I didn't rebuild you overnight. I stayed close enough for you to grow differently. Not to perform, but to become. So don't dismiss the quiet. The quiet is where the real change takes root. You're not who you used to be. And this newness, it didn't come from pressure. It came from being held. I was holding you all along. And what grew out of that will last. I'm not waiting for your gratitude. I'm not measuring your awareness. My presence isn't a reward for recognition. I stay because I love. I move because I choose to. Not because you noticed. Even when you thought nothing was happening. Even when you forgot to ask. I was still there. You may not have known it was me. You may have called it rest, coincidence, a moment of peace. I didn't correct you. I wasn't offended. I'm not fragile. I'm faithful. My work in you is not a one-time rescue. It's a constant, invisible embrace, one that keeps surrounding you, even when you feel far. Even now, if you're still tired, if things still feel uncertain, if you still don't know what's next, I haven't left. I'm not waiting for the perfect moment to show up. I've been here, quietly helping, softly rebuilding, not for attention, but because I promised I would. And you're still breathing, still here. That's not just your strength, that's my nearness. You don't need to be certain, you don't need to be thankful, you just need to know. I haven't gone anywhere. I don't move based on how you respond. I stay because that's who I am. You used to live in urgency, always bracing, always reacting, speaking quickly, moving quickly, holding everything together. You thought strength was sharpness, speed, intensity, and for a long time, it worked. But it also drained you, not just your body, your spirit. You were tired, even when you didn't show it. Then, slowly, it began to shift. You didn't plan it. You didn't announce it. You just started speaking less, pausing more, listening instead of explaining. Not because you had nothing to say, but because you no longer needed to prove anything. The noise started fading, and in its place came something you didn't expect: stillness. This quiet isn't emptiness, it's substance. It holds weight, depth, clarity. You're not shrinking, you're becoming. You're learning that strength isn't loud, it's rooted, and that rootedness didn't come from a moment of force, it came from my steady presence. I didn't pressure you to change. I stayed until you no longer had to hold yourself so tightly. Now, when you look at yourself, you may wonder where the old fire went. But what replaced it isn't lesser. It's richer, stronger, truer. You've grown quieter, but not weaker. You've grown quieter because something deeper has settled in you. Something I placed there, and it will not be moved. You don't reach for the same defenses anymore. You don't rush to answer. You don't armor yourself the moment something feels uncertain. That isn't numbness. It isn't withdrawal. It's presence. Calm, attentive, rooted presence. You're no longer trying to win. You're learning how to remain. I've been guiding you into this quietly. I didn't force stillness on you. I became the stillness with you. I stayed until your pace began to slow, until the fear stopped running ahead of every thought, until you noticed silence doesn't mean abandonment, it means safety. You've become more aware, not of what's wrong, but of what matters. You move more slowly because you're listening more carefully. You pause, not out of fear, but out of honor. You're not trying to be impressive. You're trying to be real. And real doesn't rush. I never wanted you to become someone else. I've been returning you to yourself. The one who doesn't need to fight to be seen. The one who doesn't have to be loud to be heard. The one who can sit in silence and know I'm sitting there too. You've grown quieter. That means you've grown deeper. And in that depth, I remain. You waited for something you could name. A day when everything would shift. A clear signal, a marked before and after. But that's not how it came. What changed you wasn't sudden. It wasn't loud. You didn't feel the ground move beneath your feet. You felt something softer, a sense that you were no longer alone. What happened wasn't an event. It was care. Not once. Over and over. In small, nearly invisible ways. Not in miracles that made you tremble, but in comfort that made you breathe. You didn't mark the moment because it didn't need to be marked. It wasn't about drama. It was about presence. I didn't need you to recognize me for me to stay. I knew you'd understand later. When you'd wake and feel peace where there used to be tension. When your first reaction was gentler than before. When you stopped needing to explain what you were feeling and simply let yourself feel it. Those aren't little things. That's transformation. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about staying close enough, long enough for you to grow without fear. You didn't heal all at once. You grew into healing. Because I was near, not just to fix, but to remain. And I remained. That's why you've changed. Now, when you look back, you see the difference. Not in the world around you. In you. Your breath is deeper. Your thoughts are softer. Your silence is stronger. This isn't because you worked harder. It's because I stayed. I didn't appear in a single flash. I wove myself into your rhythm, slowly, patiently, daily. You didn't have to call it a miracle. You just had to feel the shift. And that shift is real. You've changed. Because I was there. And I still am. You're no longer wondering if something is happening. You know it is. Not from effort but from presence. And that presence is me. Now part of you. Not as a memory, but as a root. And that root will hold, always.